When you see a press gaggle on Air Force One on a Saturday night, you're usually not expecting a major geopolitical bombshell.
No, not at all. You're thinking, okay, maybe some comments on the polls, a jab at an opponent, standard stuff.
Exactly. But this past Saturday, flying down to Florida, President Trump drops this statement that, on the surface, sounds like a simple oil trade update, but it might be one of the most confusing and significant pivots we've seen in years.
It was a real record-scratch moment for anyone watching the energy markets, that's for sure.
So the quote that really set things off was this. Trump tells reporters, we've already made a deal, India's coming in, and they're going to be buying Venezuelan oil as opposed to buying it from Iran.
And then he throws in that China is welcome to join too.
Which, if you take that at face value, is just a bundle of contradictions.
It really is.
Right, because my very first thought was, wait a minute, is India even buying oil from Iran? I was pretty sure that's stopped a while ago.
You're spot on. That's the immediate hang-on moment here. If you actually look at the import data for India, the column for Iranian crude has been at or near zero for quite some time now.
Because of U.S. sanctions.
Exactly. The United States has had these heavy sanctions on Iranian oil, and India, despite its, historical relationship with Tehran, has largely complied to avoid getting into trouble with the U.S. Treasury.
So if India isn't buying Iranian oil, then Trump is basically solving a problem that doesn't exist. Stop buying from Iran, buy from Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
But the Iran tap is already off. Is this just a slip of the tongue? Did he mean to name another country?
It's almost certainly a rhetorical slip, or maybe a habit of just lumping U.S. adversaries together. But if you dig into the specifics and you look at the actual problem Washington is trying to solve, Iran is just a placeholder.
For who?
For Russia. The real country in the crosshairs here is Russia.
Okay, now that connects the dots.
Yeah.
Because India is buying a massive amount of Russian oil.
Huge amounts. I mean, since the war in Ukraine started and the West put sanctions on Moscow, Russia had all this oil it needed to sell, and they offered it at a huge discount.
And India, as a fast-growing, energy-hungry economy, stepped right up.
They said, we'll take it. For the past couple of years, Russian crude has been powering a huge chunk of the Indian economy.
And Washington has absolutely hated that.
Hated it. From the U.S. perspective, India is basically funding Putin's war machine with every barrel they buy. But until recently, there wasn't a whole lot the U.S. could do about it besides, complain.
But the tone changed. It wasn't just complaining anymore.
It changed drastically, and this is the context you can't ignore. Just recently, Trump hit India with 25% tariffs on their goods. It was a massive escalation.
And New Delhi was furious. I remember they called it unjustified.
Right, so you have this intense economic pressure, the stick being used to try and force India to drop Russian oil.
But you can't just use a stick. You have to offer a carrot, right? If you're telling India to stop buying cheap Russian oil, they need somewhere else to get it.
Exactly. You can't just unplug an economy the size of India's. And that is where Venezuela enters the picture. The Iran comment was almost certainly a misstatement for Russia. The whole strategy here is a geopolitical bank shot.
How so?
Trump wants to use Venezuelan crude, which it costs the U.S. nothing to displace Russian oil in India. He's trying to cut off Putin's revenue by reopening the taps down in Caracas.
Which brings us to the other huge complication in all this. Venezuela. I mean, for the last decade, buying oil from Venezuela was just as forbidden in Washington's eyes as buying it from Iran.
It was a pariah state. Sanctions, embargoes, the whole 9 yards. You couldn't just swap Russia for Venezuela because both were basically off limits.
So something had to change.
And that's why we have to rewind the clock to January 3rd, 2026. Because without what happened on that day, this whole conversation on Air Force One just doesn't happen.
This is the part of the story that still feels a bit surreal to me. We're not talking about a diplomatic agreement or a new treaty. We are talking about a full-on military operation.
It was effectively a decapitation strike. On January 3rd, a U.S. military operation in Caracas led to the capture of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife.
And the wording here is all over the place, depending on the source. Some say captured, others use the word kidnapped. The official line from the U.S. is that they were apprehended on drug and narco-terrorism charges.
Correct. The DOJ has had indictments out on Maduro for years. But to actually go in and physically remove a sitting head of state, that's a level of audacity that just rewrites the entire rulebook. It created an immediate, total power vacuum in Venezuela.
Okay, so Maduro's gone. He's in a cell somewhere.
Yeah.
Who's actually running the country now? Because Trump had a pretty blunt comment about that, too.
He did, and it was incredibly blunt. He just said, I'm running Venezuela.
Not, we're supporting the new government, but I'm running it.
Exactly. I mean, the formal arrangement is that Delcy Rodriguez, the former vice president, is now the acting president. But Trump was very clear that she's there basically on his permission. He said he's letting her lead so long as she does what he wants.
And what he wants is the oil.
He wants the oil. He wants it flowing, and he wants it flowing on U.S. terms. Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves on the planet, more than Saudi Arabia.
Wow.
But for years, those reserves were basically useless to the West because of mismanagement and sanctions. Now, with the leadership gone and a U.S.-approved interim president installed, the entire legal framework of the country is being rebuilt.
Let's dig into that a bit. When you say overhauled, what does that actually mean on the ground?
It's a fundamental structural change. The new administration is completely dismantling the old state-controlled model from the Chavez and Maduro eras.
Okay.
They're opening the whole hydrocarbons sector to private and foreign players in a way we haven't seen for decades. They're slashing royalties and taxes to make it profitable again. But the biggest change, the one that lets global CEOs actually sleep at night, is the legal stuff.
The legal stuff.
They are allowing international arbitration.
Explain why that's such a big deal for someone who isn't an international lawyer.
Okay, so imagine you're a giant oil company, like a Chevron or one of India's big ones. You want to invest billions to drill in Venezuela. Under the old system, if the government suddenly decided to seize your assets, you had to sue them in a Venezuelan court.
And good luck with that.
Exactly. You'd never win a case against the dictator who appointed the judges. International arbitration means any dispute gets settled in a neutral court, say, in London or New York, under international law. It completely de-risks the investment. It's a huge neon sign to the market saying, your money is safe here now.
So the U.S. takes out the leader, installs a conditional president, forces a rewrite of the economic laws to protect foreign capital, and then turns to India and says, all right, the shop is open, you can buy from here now.
That is the concept of the deal, to use Trump's own words. It's a manufactured solution to a manufactured problem.
But let's look at it from India's side. We know they were buying Russian oil because it was cheap. Is Venezuelan oil a good substitute? I mean, isn't all crude oil kind of the same?
No, this is where the chemistry gets really interesting. Oil is definitely not just oil.
I always just figured you pour crude into a refinery and gasoline comes out the other side.
Not quite. Think of refineries like digestive systems. They're tuned for a very specific diet. And India's refineries, especially the huge, sophisticated ones run by companies like Reliance, are incredibly complex.
Meaning they can handle the really nasty stuff.
Exactly. They are designed to process heavy, sour crude. That's the thick, sludgy, high-sulfur oil that Venezuela produces in enormous quantities. To a simple refinery, that stuff is a nightmare. But to a complex Indian refinery, it's gold.
Why gold?
Because they can buy it at a discount since it's low quality, but their advanced equipment can crack it and turn it into high-value products like diesel and jet fuel. Their profit margins are massive with that kind of crude.
So running their refineries on a lighter, sweeter crude oil is actually less efficient for them.
It's like putting premium gasoline in a massive diesel truck engine. It'll run, but you're wasting money and not getting the performance it was built for. India was a huge buyer of Venezuelan oil for years, precisely because it was the perfect chemical match for their infrastructure.
So when the U.S. sanctions cut off Venezuela a few years back, it must have really been a problem for India's refiners.
It was a massive headache. They had to scramble to find other sources. So now when the U.S. comes and offers to reopen the Venezuelan tap, India isn't just doing Washington a political favor. They want that specific type of oil. It's good for their bottom line.
Okay, so the table is set, the chemistry works, the politics are being forced into alignment. Is India actually taking the bait?
Oh, they're moving fast. While Trump was talking to reporters on Saturday, the diplomacy was already in full swing. On Friday, Prime Minister Modi had a direct phone call with acting President Delcy Rodriguez.
Wow. That's significant. The first high-level call since the operation.
It's hugely significant. It's basically India giving its official stamp approval to the new reality in Venezuela. And the readout from that call was all positive. They agreed to deepen and expand their partnership. Modi even tweeted about taking relations to new heights.
So they're not just testing the waters, they're diving in.
It looks that way. And they're not just talking about oil barrels. It's trade, investment, digital technology, health.
And the subtext, I assume, is the tariff issue.
That has to be it. India is likely making a bet that if they play ball on this whole Venezuela pivot, if they help the U.S. cut off Russia's revenue, then Trump will lift those 25% tariffs on their goods.
So it's a trade-off.
Yeah.
We'll solve your Russia problem if you solve our tariff problem.
It's transactional diplomacy 101.
I want to go back to the other person Trump invited to this party, China. He said China is welcome to come in and make a great deal.
Yeah, that was a curveball.
It really was, because for over a century, U.S. policy in Latin America has been guided by the Monroe Doctrine, right? Keep other big powers out of the Western Hemisphere. So why on earth would he invite his biggest geopolitical rival to come set up shop in Venezuela?
It seems so counterintuitive, but think about the alternative for a second. The U.S. has just decapitated the Venezuelan government. The country is incredibly fragile. The economy is in ruins.
Yeah.
If Venezuela collapses into total chaos, you get a massive migration crisis pointed straight at the U.S. southern border.
Which is the last thing this administration wants.
The absolute last thing. So the U.S. needs the Venezuelan economy to stabilize and fast. They need money flowing into Caracas to keep the lights on. If China wants to come buy oil and inject billions of dollars into this new U.S.-controlled system, Trump seems to be saying, be my guest.
So it's pragmatism over ideology.
Or maybe control over ideology? Trump seems to believe that he controls the tech now. He controls the interim president. So if China comes in, they're playing in a casino that's owned and operated by the United States. They're not propping up an adversary anymore. They're participating in a market that Washington regulates.
That's a wild twist on the Monroe Doctrine. It's
Yeah.
not stay out, it's come on in, but you have to play by our rules.
Exactly. And remember, every barrel China buys from this new Venezuela is a barrel they might not buy from Iran or Russia. It pulls China, even just a little bit, into a Western-managed energy system.
So let's just try to summarize this whole triangular deal because there are so many moving parts.
It's a very complex machine. Step 1. The U.S. removes a hostile regime in Venezuela, installs a compliant one.
Right.
Step 2. The U.S. pressures India, using tariffs, to stop funding Russia's war effort. And Step 3. The U.S. directs India to buy its oil from the newly opened up Venezuela instead. The result: India gets the heavy crude it needs and tariff relief. Venezuela gets an economic lifeline. And the U.S. denies money to Putin while stabilizing a key country in its own backyard.
It sounds almost too perfect on paper. It relies on a lot of things going exactly right.
It does. It relies on the Venezuelan people actually accepting this new government. It relies on the oil infrastructure, which has been basically rotting for a decade, being able to ramp up production. That's a huge operational risk.
Billions of dollars in investment needed there, I imagine.
Billions and years of work. And it also relies on India trusting that the U.S. won't just change its mind in a year and sanction Venezuela all over again.
That's a big trust deficit to overcome.
It is, but when the alternative is 25% tariffs and a hostile relationship with Washington, it seems like New Delhi has decided this is the safer bet to make.
You know, we started this deep dive talking about a confusing quote about Iran, but what we've really ended up describing is a story about managed trade.
It really challenges our whole idea of how the global economy is supposed to work.
That's what I'm thinking. You know, in school you learn about supply and demand, the invisible hand of the market. This isn't an invisible hand. This is the very, very visible hand of the U.S. military and the President of the United States.
It's a shift from a free market to what you could almost call a permission slip market. You can have trade, you can have energy security, but only if you have the permission slip from the White House.
And that permission slip is backed up by force, like the operation on January 3rd.
Precisely. Trump is explicitly picking winners and losers here. He's deciding India will buy from Venezuela and will not buy from Russia. He is deciding who gets to run Venezuela to make that happen. It makes traditional free market theory look like, well, a fairy tale.
So the thought I want to leave everyone with is this. We talk a lot about the idea of energy independence. But if the global flow of oil is now being dictated by who gets captured, who gets installed as president, and who gets a tariff waiver, is independence even possible anymore for a country like India? Or are we just entering an era where energy policy is just a sub-department of military alliances?
It suggests that in 2026, there's really no such thing as a purely commercial transaction in the energy sector. Every barrel of oil is a political statement. And right now, the U.S. is forcing everyone to make a statement in favor of its new project in Caracas.
And whether that project works or if it all just blows up. Well, that's what we'll be watching for the next few months.
It is definitely going to be a volatile ride.
Thanks for breaking all this down with me. It's so much more than just a soundbite on a plane.
My pleasure.
And thank you for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll catch you on the next one.